Hi, my name is Dr. Michelle Miedenberg, and I am here with Clay Drinko. And I wanted to show you this absolutely wonderful book that he wrote that's coming out on Tuesday. And it is called 120 Improv Inspired Exercise to help you to calm down, stop spiraling, and embrace uncertainty. And it's called Play Your Way Sane. And I have to say, I sat and read it, and it is so engaging and humorous. You really use humor so well in this book. And what I really particularly loved about it, and I shared with you, is it's a way to really help somebody with stress and anxiety, but in such a wonderfully playful way. It's like not in your face or done through like these, scary, challenging things that sometimes we're told to do. So, I want to hear from you, if you could introduce yourself and talk about what inspired you to write this and what inspires you in general. I would love to hear that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I'm really glad to be here to talk about this with you. Yeah, my name is Clay Drinko. I write for Psychology Today and Life Hack, and I have a previous academic book about theatrical improvisation and how it affects the mind. And that's part of the story of why I wrote the book. So it was about 8 years ago that the academic book came out, and it's really about how improvisers, when they really know what they're doing, their focus shifts on stage and things become effortless. They experience this state of flow, anxiety really decreases. Um, and so I knew all that.
Mm.
And then here I was living in New York City in my tiny little shoebox apartment in Chelsea. And I would, just be walking down the street and bump into people and be stressed out and scream at I mean, I felt like such a hypocrite because I had the master's degree, the PhD, I knew all these things, and I was not doing that. Like I knew that I should be able to take what I knew about improv and apply it to my everyday life so I could be
Mhm.
less anxious and more in the moment, just like I was when I was performing. And so I set out to make a super accessible guide for little games that you can play every day to be
Mhm.
less stressed, less annoyed, less distracted, and
Mhm.
just embracing whatever's happening around you. And that's Play Your Way Sane.
Yeah. So I have a quick question because some people may not even know what improvisation is. So do you have like a simple, easy, clear kind of definition of what you mean when you say that?
I mean, I do.
Okay.
Theatrical improvisation.
Yeah.
So there's different kinds of improv. I only talk about like improv comedy
Okay.
or theatrical improvisation, and that is when people are performing theatrically and they
Mhm.
don't have a script. So that's the really broad definition.
Okay.
But really, what I'm talking about are things that people have probably seen on Whose Line Is It Anyway?
Mhm.
If people have ever been to a Second City show, there's a lot sort of that we see on television. There's sort of semi-improvised things like
Mhm.
Curb Your Enthusiasm. I wish I could think of this show. There's some new show that's also semi-improvised. So it's that kind of like making it up as you go.
Yeah.
But the really important part is it's not just saying whatever you want. A lot of people think that improv is just doing whatever you want. There are really set principles to follow to
Okay.
make it work out better. And so really those principles are what I take to make my everyday games or my exercises. And they're things like say yes to other people's ideas,
Mhm.
because it makes sense. If somebody's on stage and they say, here, I made you some ice cream. And then your partner says, that's not ice cream. Imagine how you would feel if you're the person who just wanted to give ice cream. In your brain, the scene is about giving away some ice cream. Like the sense of panic and
Mhm.
anxiety and discomfort is so high in that moment. So to just get over that, you just say yes to everyone's idea and
Mhm.
build that way. And so that's sort of the main principle. But there's other things like treating your scene partner like a genius. Because the idea is kind of similar. If you come on stage with me and I'm like, oh, here's Michelle, she's the worst. Like our scene is going to be awful. Like I can't have that attitude and
Mhm.
create a great scene. So, it's reserving judgment,
So it
being
sounds
more
like also
positive.
mindset. It sounds like mindset, right?
A lot of it has to
Yeah.
do with mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. If you, all of that is pre-scripting. right?
Mhm.
All of that is not being in the moment. So if you have the mindset that this is going to be great, I love this person, we're just going to build and build and build and see what happens. Suddenly it's really, really fun and you don't have to
Mhm.
worry about anything. And so I think it's really magical if we can take those principles into our everyday life.
Yeah. So is there a specific, specific games, from your book that you could use as examples, just to tell the audience, so that they can know exactly what they're getting. Yeah.
Absolutely. They're tiny, tiny little quick things you can do
Mhm.
all day long, and I still do them. So this is not the kind of book that you read it all the way through cover to cover and then you're cured. Like you are going to be perfect for the rest of your life. I
Mhm.
am not promising that. I still am a generally anxious person. I'm still an overthinker, but
Mhm.
these games really help to manage it. Like that's
Mhm.
just my personality, but it helps me manage. So one
Mhm.
example is a really classic improv game. I don't know what any improv games are called. Like I never can remember, but my version of it for real life is called Call It Like You Sees It.
Mhm.
And all you have to do is point, like take a walk and look around. You point to things that you see and just yell out what they are. So
Mhm.
this one I play a lot when I'm walking the dog because I
Mhm.
live somewhere where I can point and yell what things are and no one, like there's no one around. There's like a kind of
Mhm.
wooded area that I go. But you can kind of say it quietly. And the
Mhm.
idea is if I'm taking my dog for a walk and I'm
Mhm.
not doing this, 9 times out of 10, I'm thinking about how to structure the article that I'm a little stuck on, or I'm
Mhm.
thinking about what I need to make for dinner, or I'm overthinking because that's what I do. Like
Mhm. That's
it's
what we all do, by the way.
right. We all do it, right?
Yes.
Or maybe I'm not overthinking, but I'm certainly not aware of anything that's going on around me, right? Like
Mhm.
sometimes I don't even know when my dog is doing his business, right? I'm just so not in the moment. And by shifting your focus,
Mhm.
literally pointing to things and saying what they are, you can't do that and think about what you're going to have for dinner at the same time. Like
Yeah.
our conscious brain is super limited in what it can focus on, and so it's
Yeah.
kind of a gift, right? we can
Mhm.
we can use that sort of weakness in our conscious mind to our advantage and say,
Yeah.
I'm not going to think about dinner, I'm going to point at things and say what they
Mhm.
are. I
Mhm.
will say I play this game, it's probably the game I play the most because it's so easy and it's a quick way to shift my focus.
Mhm.
I also love playing it with my 3-year-old daughter
Mhm.
because it helps us both become more mindful and
Yeah.
present. And
Yeah.
inevitably, it leads us to whatever we're going to do next, right? It
Mhm.
leads us to some sort of activity that we could have
Mhm.
never pre planned. Like I'll say, there's a leaf, there's a mushroom, there's some ice. And then she'll say, oh, that's really cool. I want to pick up the ice and throw it and watch it break or whatever.
Yeah.
I couldn't have planned that in the morning.
Uh,
And those really in the moment experiences,
Mhm.
I mean, that's what it's for me, that's what it's all about.
Mhm.
That brings me back to the feeling I had when I was improvising, when I just was flowing. I didn't have a care in the world.
Yeah.
And so that for me is the benefit of these games.
Yeah. Um, yeah. So I was also telling you before, I was talking to my husband, and he was like, "That's so cool. Like, those are things I think I could do." Right. Because the idea of like leaning into your discomfort or right or uncertainty, whatever it is, which we're told to do, right, seems like so challenging, and we tend to become avoidant because we find that they're so challenging. But it's like you're helping yourself in these ways, but playing at the same time, so it doesn't feel as heavy or as strenuous or tenuous, right? So I love it. I think it's so usable and user friendly.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean,
Yeah.
that's because it is a book in a way about improv. Like I
Uh-huh.
am using the improv principles
Yeah.
to create these games, and that is how improv is, right? Like
Mhm.
it has to be super low stakes to get everyone off the walls trying these silly things.
Mhm.
So I'm
Yeah.
glad you felt like it was
Yeah.
that
And it's funny, it almost made me say to myself, I think like I'm interested in maybe doing some improv work.
way. Yes.
'Cause
Yes.
I got the therapy part. Yeah. I
Yeah.
was like, I need
There.
I need to play more.
There are tons. There's
Yeah.
actually a huge sort of movement. I mean, I don't know if it's huge, but for me, it's when I wrote my academic book 8 years ago, there was not a ton of research. There was some for sure, but there wasn't a ton of research on improv and how it can be applied.
Mhm,
There was for musical improv, but not theatrical improv.
mhm,
And so now there are a lot more people exploring how to use it in therapy, how
oh,
social workers can use it in like group sessions. And
mm,
so there is,
mhm.
there are improv classes for people with anxiety.
Yeah.
There are people studying and doing improv for people with specifically Parkinson's disease,
Mhm.
Alzheimer's,
Wow.
because it has all these really interesting applications. So I would
Mhm.
say
Yeah, go
definitely
for it.
explore it because there is
Yeah.
such a great connection, I think, between therapy and improv.
Yeah, yeah. So I really am endorsing this book. I'm gonna put it up.
I'm gonna put on mine too. Thank you.
And good luck with, your publication date, which is very exciting.
Thank
And it
you.
was so great to talk to you. And I really hope that people will go out and buy it because I think it could be really useful and helpful for them.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.